Mental Salvation Radio, Salvation Sundays. This is episode 54. What's up, y'all? How y'all feeling? Let's take a moment. Mental Salvation Radio, Salvation Sundays. This is episode 54. Episode 54. And my beautiful guest is Carla. She'll be here very shortly. So right in I pinned her Instagram. So follow her right now. Click the link. Follow her right now. But before we get started, once again, welcome to another episode of Salvation Sundays. I've been doing this for about 3.5 years now. And with that being said, I wanted to dedicate this platform to the entrepreneurial spirit of the Black woman. And it's been going great thus far. You know, my very first guest was Clarity, who is Norita Graves. She now lives out in Germany. And that was my very first show, right? Before the pandemic started or during the pandemic, right? At any rate, Mental Salvation Radio, Salvation Sundays, episode 53. This is episode 54. This is episode 54, man. It's episode 54. So if you know any entrepreneurial Black woman who carries that spirit of entrepreneurialism or carries that spirit of wanting to tell their story, because I can't tell the story for them, send them over to Mental Salvation Radio here on Instagram and click the link in the bio. Once they click the link in the bio, that particular box will open up. You will look for Salvation Sundays, because I only do this on Sunday. I don't do it on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or Saturday. Love. I only do it on Sundays here at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time here on Instagram, on the gram, live. All right. So they will be able to follow the instructions, put in 2 dates, send in a photo, send in your Instagram handles and things of that nature. And yeah, that's it. That's it. And then we'll set up a time. Then he or she, not he, but she will come on to Salvation Sundays. And yeah, and we'll pop it up like that. Big up to Preneur Your Starseed podcast. Big up to everybody who has been supporting Salvation Sunday since day uno. Like since day one, since like 3 years ago. Thank y'all for tuning in to another installment of Salvation Sundays. Once again, I am Enoch's 7th prophet, and this is Salvation Sundays, episode 54. And in the background, you hear the beautiful, talented Anita Baker. You feel me? Anita Baker. Yeah, so let's get this popping. I want to just wait to get everybody to come in the room. We're just waiting it out for a little bit, but we would definitely bring my guest on very shortly. So give me a few moments. Also, too, once again, big up to everybody who's been supporting the platform. Thank y'all so much for inviting your girlfriends over, inviting your good friends over, telling your sister friends about what's going on here on Mental Salvation Radio, because I am getting a lot of like, what do you call it? Referrals. That's what it is. Getting a lot of referrals over to Salvation Sunday. So thank y'all so much. I really appreciate it. We're booked up. I'm booked up till the end of April, going into May. So we are booked up until May, and then I probably will take a little break between time in the meantime, right? To actually try to find another platform that I can actually start to now do more of this, make it a bigger platform or wider net, so to speak. But all the interviews are on IG Live. All right, so let's get it popping. Let's get it started, because I got my Anita Baker going. I don't know what y'all mamas be playing in the dang on Sunday mornings when she cleaning up, or Saturday mornings when she cleaning up. I have no idea, right, what your mama be playing. But what I do know is that this is Salvation Sunday. So we go get it started. Give me 1 second. I want to play this joint real quick because it is what it is. This goes out to those who have seasoned ears. This is the song right here. Just call my name. Alice Wilson or Alice Williams. Pardon self. All right, let's get it started. This is Salvation Radio. Hopefully y'all can hear me good. If y'all can hear me, please give some fire emojis. Give some fire emojis. If you can hear me good, please give fire emojis, some hearts, whatever you see fit to let me know that the sound is coming in clearly. Hey, how you doing?
Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can definitely hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you beautifully.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So how you doing today?
I'm doing fabulous. I'm doing great. It's a Sunday morning, After I get off here, I'm gonna have the kids clean the house, so I'm doing pretty good.
I know that's right. You gonna get them working after you done,
But
huh?
what goes around comes around. I know, on Saturday and Sunday mornings, I know I had to help clean the house. And to answer your question, it was Gladys Knight playing in my house when I was growing up.
Oh wow. That's what's up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the Gladys Knight. My mom used to play like during the Saturday mornings, she probably would be playing Lionel Richie or TKO or the Isley Brothers or the OJs, or she always used to tell me she met Eddie Kendricks one day. Like Eddie Kendricks came to her house and came to the house and she didn't know that was Eddie Kendricks. And I'm like, Eddie, stop playing with me, mama. Eddie Kendricks ain't come to the house. And then Sunday mornings, of course, it'll be, gospel music, whether it's Shirley Caesar or, Stephanie Mills. It's always music going on in the house because you knew it was time to clean up. During the week, there was no
Yeah.
problem.
It was for my house. Actually, it was Saturday morning, which growing up I hated because Saturday morning you're supposed to be able to sleep in. At least I thought after a week of going to school. But Saturday morning was the cleanup hour. But yeah, we listened to all of that. But my mom's favorite was Gladys. You knew when she put on Gladys, it was serious. Like, okay, we about to.
It's time to get up and get moving.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for accepting the invite. Thank you so much for showing up today. I definitely appreciate you for being on the platform. You are my guest of episode 54. And before we get started, I want you to just introduce yourself to the Mental Salvation Radio family, and also reintroduce yourself to those who may think they know you, or for those who have been supporting you for years and want to get to know you even more.
Okay. Well, I am Carla Cherie. I am the owner of AHA Wellness, which for the OGs that know me, it was originally called AHA Coaching and Wellness.
Mm-hmm.
They've shortened it to just AHA Wellness because that was kind of a mouthful. And to get to know me, I am a wife of 20 some odd years. I think we've been married 23 years now. I have my kids that are age range from 11 to 28. They keep me busy, even the ones that are supposedly on their own now.
Right. Air quote.
Supposedly on their own.
Right.
I live in the Northern Virginia area for the last 24 years. And I'm a highly spiritual person. I did grow up in the Catholic Church because I went to Catholic school throughout my whole schooling. But I want to say maybe 5 to 7 years ago, that kind of took a turn. I've
Okay.
always believed in the creator, but between my nature, I call him my nature boy husband because he's very in tune with nature, and my analytical mind, you know, certain conversations would come up. Well, why this and why that? And anybody that knows me, if I don't know the answer, the first thing I do is look it up because I call myself a nerd. I like learning new things. And it's like, okay, if I don't have the answer, why is that? What is going on? So I like to research stuff. So we went down a rabbit hole for a number of years, going through different religions, spirituality, cultures, and things like that. Because growing up in the home, it was strictly Christianity and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
So with him being more nature-based, it was kind of like, you're right. Let's look that up. Why is that? Why? So it kind of went from the strict Christianity mind that I grew up into spirituality
Gotcha.
and learn other things. And the more I learned, the more I fell down the rabbit hole. And then I found energy healing and I felt like I came home.
Hmm. You know what? I'm very interested into knowing how you got to where you're at now when it comes to AHA Wellness, right? Like you mentioned before, the OGs would know you as, you know, wellness and coaching, right? And those who are getting to know you now, they may be privy to the coaching part of it. But how did you get into health and wellness? I definitely want to start there, and then we'll backtrack because you said something that piqued my interest of growing up in Catholic schools and going to Catholic schools. But how did you get into the healing business, or how did you get into the healing?
I think it started when I started working in mental health. I think when I really think about it, I think it really started back then. I was working in corporate America, got laid off, and I fell into doing office management for a mental health clinic, and absolutely fell in love with the whole mental health psychology, why we do the things that we do, just being in that industry and seeing people struggle with their mental illness and their overall wellness. Because, you know, if you're mentally not well, you're physically not well, your soul's not well. So it through, you know, for the next 9 years that I worked there, 9-10 years, it just got me, I focused on the mental health side of it, but as time went on, that ties into everything else.
Mm.
And the reason why it was coaching and wellness, because of the mental health aspect, I thought I wanted to be a therapist because I really like the idea of helping people in that realm. Because like I said, if you're mentally well, you're going to be physically well. Your soul's going to be, you know, it all ties in together. So, but in my opinion, there's a lot of red tape, you know, sometimes with helping people when it comes to being a therapist, because you have the board to deal with, there's ethics and all that other stuff. And not to say there shouldn't be ethics, but there are people that sometimes need unorthodox alternative help or treatment. So I bumped into someone that brought coaching to my attention. And it was ironic because I was advocating for some mental health services for someone. And in the midst of me, I'm doing my thing, like, they need this, they need this, they need this, they don't need this. And the person literally stopped me mid-sentence and was like, you ever thought about doing coaching? I was like, what you talking about? I don't even know what coaching is. Like, what are you talking about? And they were like, you would be a natural coach. And I had never thought of it. It was just something just in me that I was passionate about. And the more I thought about it, the more, even though I didn't know it at the time, but hindsight, I've been coaching maybe since I was in high school. Because I remember my earliest memory was my principal pulling me aside and asking me to mentor someone in a younger grade than me. And I'm like, I'm a senior. Why am I mentoring? Like, but you know, in hindsight,
I'm a senior.
yeah, I don't want to do that. But but which I did because, you know, in some ways I was flattered, and I've always enjoyed sharing my experience if it's going to help the next person.
Right.
So I guess there had been now a label of what I had been doing naturally since I was in my teens. So I was like, oh, I was all gung-ho, coaching, cool. That was my introduction to everything. And when I initially started trying to enter the coaching, you know, business, my soul felt like there was something missing.
Gotcha.
It was, you know, when you look at coaching, it's really square. It's, you know, career coaching, really, it's real in this box, which felt kind of like therapy. And it wasn't until I kept, you know, I kept following my soul, my gut, my instinct, whatever you want to call it. And I actually, like I said, with my husband, you know, researching different things. We were watching programs on Gaia channel, Gaia.com, for things, finding about consciousness, blah, 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 all those topics. And then it just started to become aware to me that the spirituality piece of the coaching was missing. Because in my opinion, you can coach someone in, okay, this is not the right job, this is this, that, whatever the case, relationship, but I call it spirituality. It could be your religion, it could be whatever, but that piece where your soul, the creator, that's in everything.
Right.
So that's when I started adding on the wellness piece, because at that point I had already started getting into energy healing. So it was kind of like when you go into therapy, and I've known many people in therapy because I've advocated for mental health for a while, being in that environment. You do talk therapy, and you get all your junk, you talk all your junk and stuff like that, but then you've worked up yourself after talking all of that. So what is there once you walk out the door to kind of like, okay, not only did you purged all that emotion verbally, now how do you soothe your nervous system, your spiritual, your soul after that? I feel like that piece is missing in therapy. So when I found Reiki in particular, it just made sense to merge it, coaching and wellness, because you come and you talk about the job you hate, the relationship that's not doing well, family, whatever the case may be, and you're going, and you're all wound up.
Right.
What is there? What's going? You know, as before you walk out the door, to kind of be like,
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, the woosah. So that was my thing of, as far as there needs to be some kind of combination, in my opinion. So that was the coaching and wellness. Come, let's talk, let's strategize, let's vent, and before you leave my office, let's do Reiki to calm things down, give you perspective, you know, get you focused, make you feel good about what we talked about, and release.
Right. Now, do through your experience, have you known anyone to reject Reiki because they don't understand the dynamics of what is happening? Like, we understand the dynamics of therapy when we sit down and we express how we feel emotionally, mentally, you know, and physically, because we are emotional with our movements and things of that nature. But when now it comes to, you're coaching, your therapy, you're doing this and doing that, but then when it comes to the Reiki side of things, do you get any pushback from that? Or do you get people to be like, I'm not too sure about that? Like, how do you get your clients, in the sense, involved in the whole process of holistic healing?
So mostly it's I don't get too much pushback, except for maybe people that are involved that are religious, that are like, you know, they feel like it may go against their belief system. On the flip side, there's those who maybe they're just because they lack of knowledge, they don't know what it is.
Right.
You know, how is it going to help me? Like, what exactly is it? So usually the folks that are, really don't know are more open-minded, because once you explain that, it's a form of energy healing, and if they don't know, if anyone who knows anything about crystals, they're involved in crystals or what have you, they know what energy healing is. But if not, you can explain. I usually explain that that's a form of alternative medicine, that it's that practitioners use what's called like palm healing or hands-on healing, through which the universal energy is transferred from the practitioner's palm to the client, in order to encourage emotional and physical healing. And then you just tell them, I just give them facts like major hospitals are now using it. Quite honestly, that's how I found out about Reiki. Like, I'd heard of it, but from the very first time I experienced it was I was working at a hospital, a major hospital in my area, and they were offering it to their employees for free. And, I ain't gonna turn down nothing for free.
No, turn down nothing but your collar.
I had already, been wanting to experience it, and now here's being presented to me for free. So I was like, okay, and the experience I had was just like, I'm gonna say life-changing, because after that, I hunted it down, wanted to know what it was. Why did I feel the things that I feel? I was so relaxed, tinglings, all kinds of stuff. So I wanted to read everything. I wanted to know about classes. So just that, and for people who don't know about it, the first thing I say, I can explain it to you, I can give you the words, but there's nothing like experiencing it. So with those people, I'll usually do like, and you can do this as easy as holding someone's hand. I can do that. I'll hold their hand for a few minutes and let them experience it, feel the heat from my palm and what they may sensations they may get for a few minutes. Because like I can say whatever all day, unless they are of the realm of, consciousness and energy healing or whatever. They already kind of have a clue.
Right. Something basically open-minded, in the sense of that's when you can introduce the Reiki practice to what you've already done within that session. But if they're not kind of open to it, you would kind of like veer away from it, or like you mentioned before, I guess you'll just hold their hands and say, hey, let's breathe together before you leave here. And you kind of already put them on Reiki already if you're holding their hands, and it's like, okay, let's breathe before you leave here.
Exactly.
Because this is a compound spirit.
And so I always let them know what I'm doing. I usually I don't. I could do that where I just hold their hands and give them Reiki, and they would never know. They feel the wonderful sensation of walking out all stress-free and feeling, wonderful. A lot of my clients leave and they're just like, oh, I could take such a good nap right now, and they feel so relaxed. I could do that, and they would never know the wiser. Right. But I'm transparent. I'm gonna tell you what it is. I have done that though with a really good friend of mine who was very skeptical, and she knew what I did, but she came over to my house one day, and she was just like, she was upset, and she's running her mouth, and she's this and she's that, and I just held her hand as she's talking, and as she's talking, her speech started to slow down. She started to get less agitated, and she started to get more calm. And then she looked at me and she said, "You just Reiki'd me, didn't you?" And I said, "I sure did." Over the place. I said, "I Reiki." You're all over the place. So she was like, and that was the first time she had experienced it, because I'm also psychic. I like to use the word intuitive, but I'm also psychic. So one of her reasons for me not doing Reiki too, because she didn't want me to read her. That was one of the reasons too. But I don't just go around reading people just all willy-nilly. But that's just not my thing. Right. But that was one of the reasons. But when I did it, she was like, "Oh my goodness!" I was like, I've been trying to tell you this whole time, and you could have been having free Reiki because we're friends." But it was just amazing. It still amazes me, even though I'm, Reiki master, to see how effective it is. So yeah.
Got you. You know what? Let me put a sticky note right here, because there are other things I want to ask that's pertaining to Reiki, and how did you get to that moment, and did you take classes, and who was your first teacher? But before I get into that moment, you know, you said something in the beginning that kind of struck a chord, because you are the 54th guest here on Salvation Sundays. Prior to you coming here, all 53 guests have had a spiritual awakening, has had that moment that they had maybe lost their job or got laid off, or God smacked them down and said, hey, you got to do this because you're not going to prosper if you're not going to do this, right? And then I'll have guests who, you know, come from a religious background. Maybe they were Pentecostal or Baptist, and, you know, now Catholic. Now, and growing up in that time that you were growing up, was your family Catholic based, or were you just a bad person? I'm not a bad girl, but like didn't listen in public schools, and it was like, okay, we gonna send you to Catholic school because
Oh,
you.
no. I was in Catholic school from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade.
Oh wow.
I grew up, so the backstory is I grew up in the Bronx in New York City. So I'm originally from the Virgin Islands. I was born there.
Okay.
And so my family is Caribbean, obviously, from Virgin Islands. And my mom moved us kids, because I have two older brothers, to New York. And, you know, ironically, they went to public school, maybe because they were boys. I don't know. But when I started school, I went to private school. So I was always in Catholic school from the time I started school all the way to the time I graduated.
Wow.
And that was, you know, public schools, New York City, you know.
Right.
So I think it was more of a safety factor for my mom or whatever. So private school was basically all I knew.
Gotcha. And are you the youngest out of the
I
three?
am. I am the youngest and the only girl.
So having two brothers who went to public school, and now you find yourself in private school, going to private Catholic school. How was it growing up in the house of, you know, two brothers, and you were the only girl and the youngest girl? What was that vibe like for you growing up? Because you said you came from there to now New York City. What was that?
I was very spoiled. I was spoiled. I was sheltered because not only am I the youngest and only girl, there's like a 12-year difference, age range difference between me and my brothers. So they were not only my older brothers for a long time until, you know, they moved on and joined the military. They were like second parents, because they were, because when they were in high school, their junior, senior year, one was, because my brothers are a year apart from each other. I was just like starting like kindergarten or whatever, so, or first grade, whatever it was.
And what was the thought process of why your mom, you know, of course, is, you know, moms, of course, all parents want to do what's best, you know, want to give their child the best things they can give them. If they didn't grow up like that, but if they did grow up like that, they still want to give them the best that they can give to survive in this world. But as you are in a Catholic school in kindergarten, did your mom ever give you the explanation of why she put you, like why you was going to Catholic school?
Actually, if I remember correctly, been in the Virgin Islands before we moved to New York. When I was in preschool, I was in a private school as well. So,
Okay. Now, how was that vibe for you? 10th grade. Let's jump into when you now know that you are in Catholic school. You're in uniform. You understand what's going on because you are in Catholic school. You're not in kindergarten anymore. Let's say you're in 10th grade or ninth grade. What was that? What were you now learning about yourself as a person in Catholic school, not able to go to public schools, but now in Catholic school as a young girl, ninth grade? What was now your thought process going into being in Catholic school now?
well, Catholic school, that was all I knew. So, you know, as far as my family's already religious as it is. And then from early on, I was in chorus. So, Catholic school, the church, because, you know, the school and the church were right next to each other. They were joined. I was always in school. I'm a nerd, so I was always studying. And if I wasn't studying, I was in choir. So that was my big thing throughout the whole time I was there. I was heavily into the choir. So if it wasn't practice during the week or some kind of event, I was singing in the choir every Sunday when, you know, mass was going on. So, and that was all through my schooling. So
Wow. Wow. And, you know, the principal comes along and says, hey, I want you to be a big sister in a sense to a ninth grader, and you're in the 12th grade. You're like, I'm a 12th grader. Why you want me to do this?
yeah.
What was the, when that particular person asked you to do that, what was the first thing that popped up in your mind concerning helping out a ninth grader? Like, was there any really pushback, or you was like, you know what, let me just do this and get it out the way?
Um, the back of my mind was like, why me? And I don't even know this girl. And then there was no pushback because, you know, my principal was asking me to do something. You know, I was the good girl. So I followed the rules. There was no breaking the rules. So whether I wanted to do it or not, you know, my principal was asking me to do this. So, okay, you know, I'll do what I say, and, you know, I have faith in what I have to show her, what I have to offer. So, okay, I'm going to go with it.
Right, right.
But did no come to my mind? No, it didn't.
Gotcha. Now, did you end this, was it a ninth grade? Okay, so did you two become like actual friends? Did y'all kind of create a bond as far as?
Did. And ironically, we did. We became good friends, close friends. And ironically, that was my first lesson in that you can advise someone, but they still have free will. So, although my principal asked me to mentor her, she was appreciative of my friendship, but I don't think she was really looking for a mentor or someone to guide her. Because she had in my opinion, once I got to know them, she had a really good relationship with her mom, you know, or her family and things like that, once I got to know them.
Right.
But, you know, I guess like I said, my principal, I guess, saw me one way as far as I always stuck to the rules. I stayed in line. I got really good grades and what have you. And she was her. And I guess she wanted this young lady to mirror me, which I guess when I think about it is unfair because she's an individual and she's not going to beat me.
Right.
She had support around her once I got to know her and her family. But that was my first lesson in, you know, what's the saying? You could take the horse to water, but you can't make him
drink. Right.
So that was my first lesson to that, because I remember the frustration of, okay, you should do it this way. And she was kind of like, okay, that's cool, but that's not what I want to do. I want to do this. So it was kind of like, okay, I get your point. You can do it this way, but this way is better.
Right.
So that was my experience of, okay, I'm going to advise you the way I think based on my experience. But at the end of the day, you have to do what you're going to do.
Right.
And it wasn't bad. It turned out fine. You know, she graduated. She was fine and all that. I just think that was how that generation, meaning my principal, they see it one way when something can be completed and be successful in different ways. Mm-hmm. Just because someone's way is different doesn't mean it's wrong.
Right. Right. It just fits them.
Exactly.
Yeah, it just fits them.
Exactly.
And I guess your principal at the time saw something and you didn't see that was like in the future for you. Maybe probably. They just like, hey, can you mentor this person? Let me see how well you can mentor or coach or get feedback and, you know, report to me with some feedback or whatever the case is, right? And that was your first initiation into the process of being a mentor and a coach, right? Now, what was your second invitation when it came to coaching and mentoring? When did that spark? Did it spark after you graduated and went on to do other things in your life? Like, when did that moment happen for you? I think
it came up a couple of times within my career. and it showed up in the form of training. I found myself where a lot of supervisors would ask me to train the new employees. And because I had, in their opinion, had done it so well, and they had gotten good feedback from previous employees that I had trained, or what have you. So it took that form, and after that in my career, as, okay, you got this really well. Can you train this person? And sometimes it came up in situations where it wasn't, because I was usually in administrative. So sometimes it came up where the person wasn't even in my lane, so to speak, where, like, I'll give an example. When I worked in mental health, I'm the office manager. So, you know, I had trained other administrative folks, but there were times where, can you train the therapist? Well, I'm not a therapist. How am I train the therapist?
Right.
But, you know, but just the, you know, and with any kind of like professional, like a therapist, they have their administrative side and the professional side. So it was a lot of the administrative stuff, but sometimes it's like, well, they making more money than me. Why am I training them?
Right. Why? Give me more money and I'll train them.
But, you know, but at the end of the day, it made me feel good, because it was, you know, people would have told me in the past that they don't know what it is, but I break it down where it's easy for them to understand. And little do they know, I train someone, or I coach someone the way I would want to be. You know, I give them details. I give them different signposts. Like when I give someone directions, someone will probably just use the street names. I don't use just the street names. I give street names, but I also say the Popeyes is on the corner. So when you come up to the light, you're going to see the 7-Eleven. So it gives you a total big picture, so that when, you know, so with anything, in my opinion, when you're training, it's to give as much as possible the total picture and not just a narrow, because you don't know what someone is going to pick up. Everybody's brain is different.
Right. Everybody learn differently too.
Exactly. So if I give street signs, that might be enough for one person, because that's all they need. But someone may need the landmarks. Yes. You know, like me, I'm a landmark person. Like the street sign is secondary for me. So I use landmarks, and then I use the street sign to make sure, to double check that I'm where I'm supposed to be. So I kind of give a little bit of everything so that it fits whoever my audience is.
Got you. Now, did you attend college after graduating?
Yes, I attended college, but I'm one of those folks where I was so into, I went to college for psychology, because like I said, I'm a therapist. And I took every psychology class that there was. And and then it came time for me to do like my math class and my science class. I don't mind my English classes. I did my English classes, and I was just like, why do I need physics for psychology? Why do I need? So it started that type of stuff. My brain started like, okay, I need to know the psychology stuff. Why do I need biology? I'm not going to be a psychiatrist where I have to give out, you know, meds or anything like that. But that's not what stopped me, to be honest. It deterred me a little bit, and that's why I stayed in what I loved, which was the psychology, and why I kept taking psychology classes, because I just love, the brain is just so amazing. The mind is so amazing, and it really speaks to why we do the things we do. There's always a reason. There's always something, triggers, all of that. So I was just completely in awe of that. But I really, because at the time that I was attending college and working in mental health at the same time, I got to the point where I got frustrated with the system and how I felt it was not servicing the masses as it should, in my opinion. That's my opinion. And I got to the point where one day I told myself I was taking a break because I was just getting frustrated. And a therapist came up. She goes, "Oh, you finished yet?" And I looked at her and I said, "I don't want to be you." I said, I said, I love this field, but watching you, because like I said, as I was going to college, I'm seeing the real life of what people deal with after they've graduated. So I saw how there had been newly folks that had graduated, did their, their interning and all that other stuff. So now they're in the real world and they're like deer in headlights. And like, this is not what I thought therapy was going to be based on what I learned or what I saw, what I heard in school. And they were like, because if you're dealing with the seriously ill, there's other things that come into play besides sitting down and giving talk therapy.
Right.
Sometimes coaching them on how to clean their house, keeping up their hygiene, helping them grocery shop.
Mm-hmm.
It can get that deep. And you come out of school and if you're not careful where you land, you may not be prepared for that.
Right.
So I saw all of this real time and all, the pros and the cons. And I got to a point where I was just like, yeah, no.
Yeah, no.
I don't know. I want to, but not in this aspect, I don't think. And it was more of, I was halfway through my program, my bachelor's program, and I was like, I need to figure something out, because I don't think this is, I want to stay in mental health, but I don't think this is the lane for me.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you thought about that, were you actually always, and I know you do this, but I just want to ask this question, is that when you did that, when you said that to your professor at that moment, were you always thinking about your own mental health as far as, I don't think, this is for me, like fighting against your own mental health as far as like, I want to do it, but I don't want to do it because it's not the lane for me. How did you deal with your own mental thought process going through the classes that you were going through and learning what you were learning at that time?
As far as just when I was going through the classes, or when I decided to
When
stop?
you was going through the classes and then you decided to stop, what was your mental process going through the classes, number one? Number two, when you decided to stop, what was that thing that mentally clicked in you and said, you know what, I know it's a better way to get to what I need to get to?
Yeah. So going through the classes was, it was very enlightening. So I enjoyed it. So as far as my mental health, I think it gave me insight to understanding myself better. Not to say I have a mental illness, but just we all have quirks or whatever. So understanding myself better and friends and family around me, because folks may not want to admit it, but I have family and friends around me that have mental illness. So it was kind of like, oh, that's why. Oh, okay, I get it. So it was very like eye-opening. And the more I found out, the more it gave me joy, because it made me feel like now maybe I can help them because I understand now. So yeah, so going through the classes was actually great. I really, really enjoyed them. And like I said, I keep saying I'm a nerd. I like learning things. Right. So so just learning it in itself, and then you can kind of connect the dots of, oh, I just learned something, and cousin Johnny over here, or brother, Joe over here. Now I understand. Now I get it. You get to learn what ADHD is, what depression really is, what and not just what the sound bites that they have, or whatever, but what it truly is on a mental, hormonal, your brain, all of that. So it's kind of like where you hear people go, oh, you're depressed. Oh, get over it. You can't just can't get over it. But because you can't see it
in front of you,
they think that, you just whatever, get over it. People who truly have depression, not feeling depressed, not feeling sad. That's something different. Feeling sad is different than experiencing depression.
Right.
That's, chemical imbalance that has to do with the brain. That it goes so much deeper. That's like someone with diabetes. You can't look at them and know that they have diabetes.
Right. Right. You can't do that. You know what? We are talking to Carla, who is AHA Wellness at 777 here on Instagram. And this is Salvation Sundays, episode 54. And I want to welcome everyone who has been in and out of the chat thus far. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Big up to Push for Love. Thank you for tuning in as well. And the one thing that struck me while you were talking is that, some told me to just ask you, like, how can we identify mental illness or mental illness? Because me being born in the 70s, raised in the 80s, that wasn't really, I didn't really hear that too much. Like, if you were sad, you were sad. If you were mad, you were mad. It wasn't, if you were scared of something, it was just like you were scared of something. You didn't have anxiety and things of that nature. If you were a hyper kid growing up, it was just like, hey, sit your ass down somewhere. You too hype,
Exactly.
So and I think what I want to ask is too, like, how do we identify mental illness, number one, and when did it become like I don't want to say a big thing, but I just want to say that, like, when did it become so big and now, like, pinpointed of what it is and what it isn't?
I think so. Let's go back to how do we identify it? And I agree with you. I was born in the late 70s, grew up in the 80s, the 90s, and it was, go sit your ass down somewhere, go whatever. Like,
right.
You ain't got time for you depressed, get over it. We ain't got time for that. We ain't got time for that. Especially in the African American community.
Right.
Go pray it away, go sit down somewhere or whatever.
Right.
I would say, as far as identifying, definitely see a professional. There are, and Google's a big thing. There are, Googles you can do to give you a clue if you need to see a professional. They'll give you some signs and symptoms that might say, okay, like as far as anxiety, if you go into certain situations where maybe your friend doesn't experience and you do. You might go to dinner or be around a lot of people and your friend is like, okay, and happy and joyful. But when you get around a crowd, you start, your heartbeat starts, going faster and, you start to sweat or whatever. And there's no reason for it. Then there's some anxiety there, or just depression. Usually if it's just quote unquote sadness, you might get over it in a couple of days. I'm saying, and if it's something serious, when I say that, I'm not talking about like if someone passed away or whatever, just maybe, you lost a job or something, fight with your friend. It should last maybe a couple of days, maybe a couple of weeks. But if you're going into months and you can't get out of bed and you're crying uncontrollably and, or different things, that might be your clue that there's something more than just being sad.
Gotcha.
And first and foremost, and that's just the basics. Then, with someone that has a very serious ill, it's going to be more extreme than that. And you've heard the reports where you might see someone running down the street and, they're naked or whatever. So, but I think especially if you're an adult, it's hard, of course, when you're a child, know thyself. Because if you know who you are emotionally, you should be able to tell what's your norm and what's not your norm.
Gotcha. You should be. You should definitely be.
You should be. Should is the key word.
Right.
So yeah. But definitely to identify it like concrete, talk to a professional. Like if you see those signs and symptoms in yourself or someone else, talk to a professional, and they'll go through their assessments and things like that to to find a diagnosis, and you can go from there.
You know, a lot of us in our community are, number one, afraid to go to the doctor, whether it's to get prostate examination or especially men. Men don't go to the doctor for too, you know, I mean, they're just wheeling away like, oh, I'll be all right.
Until it's too,
Say it again.
until it's too late.
Until
Yes.
it's too late, right? They're just wheeling away. But there's a lot of stigma when it comes to therapy and counseling and going to see a therapist. A lot of us don't want to go tell one person we don't know, number one, all our business because we think
That's,
we're gonna tell somebody.
but that's something that we have been taught culturally, and we need to get away from.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, back in the day, there were reasons for that. But it's gotten to the point where it's really affecting our children. And when I say our children, like my mom's generation, like my children. So what really, I'm gonna tell you a story really why it's crucial, because when my older kids were in high school, so this is maybe 5 to 10 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
there were a series of suicides with high school students in my county. And I just couldn't, growing up and where you said, suck it up,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, I just couldn't understand, and it scared me to death, understand what was going on here so bad that was the answer. Um, and, even talking to my kids, I remember, they would tell me things as far as what might have been going on in school. And not to say that didn't happen growing up. One thing is different. We didn't have social media. So if something went on in your school, it's not like the whole block or the whole, area knew about it. But you may have stayed in the house. You may have hidden the house for the rest of the school year. But it's not like or you begged your mom to move, or you went to auntie's house. I don't know. There were all kinds of other solutions. But in my opinion,
Right.
from what I tell growing up and the people around me, the age group that I grew up, that wasn't something that was the answer.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
Mental illness, and like I said, it could be social media, not just with the kids, but with adults, that we are just more aware of it, of the seriousness of it, because, you can hear what's going on, not only Virginia, but in California, in, Nevada, or what have you. And it's, there are times where I turn on, I rarely watch the news, but if you go online or something, you see another person that has either committed suicide or they died accidentally of an overdose. And it just seems like it's so much senseless death.
Mm-hmm.
And it's tied into the mental illness of whatever they're going through and not being able to handle it.
Mm-hmm. And there is a lot of that. Suicide is at a high rate, and I can never understand fathom like why a person would do that, right? But I knew a young brother, maybe in the early 2000s. He had everything he can possibly want. Like, he was a young brother. He was like maybe early 20s. This was early 2001, and he was in his early 20s. And we went out to this OK Player. We had an OK Player tour. They came to the 930 Club, and everyone had a good time. We took photos, and then the next 2 days later, I found out that he committed suicide. And I'm like, wait, we were just having a great time. You were loving life, and then this happened.
Or it appears he was loving.
Years, right?
Why mental illness is so scary, because you never know what someone is feeling behind that smile.
Mm.
Like it's so deep that they could, like, there are some people who believe like if they have everything they need, the money, the job, the house, the this, the that, there should be no need for depression or, you know, mental illness or whatever, because you have everything.
Right.
That just goes to show you where it's so much deeper, because you could have millions. You could have, look at some of the celebrities. You could have millions, fame, and all of that, and still feel worthless.
Right.
Still feel, you know, that depression, that whatever, where it's so dark that the only relief you feel that you have is that.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. I can, you know, hearing it coming from your perspective as well, and the knowledge and the information and the things that you're sharing with us, I can kind of see it, you know, as far as like a bigger picture. Is what you mentioned, is that if we have a bigger picture than just the street name, then we can see everything else around us. You know, we may miss the street, but we can see like that landmark that you were talking about, whether it's, you know, we can point out what that mental illness is, or we could say, if that person is so happy, let's dive into deep. Like, hey, how you doing today? What's going on? You good? You know, these are mental checks that we can do with
Yeah.
ourselves, and we could do with our friends and family. Like, you good? You're not good? Like, what's wrong? Like, let me know. Like, talk to me.
And that's the key though, because we we'll say that, you know, you good, and if the person say, yeah, I'm good, just because they say I'm good, do you feel like they're good? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Take a second to not just accept their words. You know, if you're only like an associate, you may not catch it. But if you're a family member or a closer friend, you should be able to see behind the word.
Mm.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Especially to males. Like, my son is not the type where he's gonna be like, yeah, I feel this way. I feel like crap, and he's not that type. But I can hear its tones.
Mm.
He can say I am good in 3-4 different tones, but I know what each tone means.
Facts. Gotcha.
But it
Gotcha.
takes paying attention to catch it though. So if you hustle and bustle your day and you're so wrapped up in your stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you know, your friends and family are just as important as you are.
Mm-hmm.
If you take that, slow down and take that 1 second and really go, and sometimes it might be a thing where they go, I'm good, and you're like, oh, okay, but wait, then you feel it. That's that intuition. Everybody has intuition.
Mm-hmm.
More in tune to it than others. But if you really pay attention to it, you get that sensation of, wait a minute, I don't think he's telling the truth. I don't think she's telling the truth. There's something off. But we have been so trained to not to pay attention to our intuition. We shoo it off for whatever reason. You know, I don't want to be nosy. You know, maybe what if I'm wrong?
Right.
Or
I don't want to be pushy.
I don't want to be pushy, but what if you're right?
Mm. And then if something happens, you're like, damn, I should have dived in deeper. Now you're kind of blaming yourself for not diving in deeper. And now you're taking on this energy of like blaming yourself. When you know, as you mentioned, we all are wrapped up in our own thing. But if we take that minute to like feel the vibe and like, oh, you're not good. Like, what's up? Like, let me know, you know,
Exactly.
what's really going on with you. So I definitely thank you for those particular pointers that you gave, because someone who's listening now can take those pointers, and someone who will listen later can write these pointers down. Big up to Push for Love. She says, love Carla Reiki session. I always see beautiful colors and vision. So, you know, you're getting response from the community. So I want to now take the sticky note off of the question I wanted to ask you in the beginning is, who was your first teacher? Who did you learn the Reiki from? Like, who did you and you know look up to, in the sense of, you know, following their ways? As far as like me, for instance, I was under the tutelages of Dr. Layla Africa. Like, I've done the classes and things of that nature, and I always would tap into his Instagram or his YouTube or read more of his books just to get more information. But who was your first teacher when it came to being holistic?
I think being holistic, just in general, I've had a number of teachers, whether it be books, because like I said, I love learning, so reading books and things like that. But as far as my first Reiki teachers was Uma at Lotus and Light in Manassas. And I also had a teacher in Manassas, Celeste Woods. And because I'm in the Woodbridge, Manassas area, one of the things that also after my experience and loving my experience, what really threw me into it is going into classes and not seeing too many of us. And, for some of the reasons we talked about earlier, because of, our culture and, the praying it away and, it'll go away or ignoring it or whatever the case may be, is bringing this knowledge to us. You can still go to church and praise and pray and all that other stuff, because this is not religious. You know what I'm saying? This is science. If you go to hospitals and they are now using this as an alternative complementary service to cancer patients and patients with other illnesses to complement traditional medicine, there's something to it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And we live in a very stressful society, and there are all kinds of ways that you can reduce your stress. Some people work out, some people, do other massage, or what have you. This is just another form that can complement some of the things you do. My husband is a good example where he suffered with chronic pain, back pain, for a number of years, and he just had back surgery a couple days ago, actually on Monday. And it's funny when your family members is like, they believe you, like you can do Reiki, and they're like, oh, okay, I believe you, until something happens, and then they're like, can you do Reiki on me? And then you're doing it, oh my God, this works. No shit.
No shit, it does work. It's been working for a long time.
So my kids, when I was training, I would use them as test dummies. But to see my older kids every once in a while, where they'll come to me, because it helps emotionally as well as physically, and they'll come to me and they'll go, okay, I think I need a Reiki session. And as a mom, that's just like, oh, it makes me feel so good. But the fact that I'm exposing them to something holistic, where they don't have to pop a pill or whatever to try, or smoke some marijuana or whatever, to calm themselves down, calm their energy body down, because we're made of energy.
Right.
And quite honestly, anybody who studied energy healing or whatever, our physical ailments start in our energy body. So it's like, whatever trauma, it starts because, your aura, if anyone's aware of energy or whatever, your aura, and it starts to attach. And the when you don't address it, it just goes deeper and deeper until it actually gets in your physical, your physical being. So to address your chakras or your energy centers, and to clear those out and to keep it up, along with doing other things like your diet, exercise or what have you, that's part of your complete wellness package. And that's why one of the things, going back to my name as far as wellness, is because AHA Wellness is about the whole person. So if you want coaching and you want to talk some things through, that's helpful, because bottling it inside is just going to eat up at you, and it's just exactly. So that's part of wellness. The Reiki, to clear some of that junk out, part of wellness. So that's why I showed, there's it was, to me, was in a way redundant, coaching and wellness, because it all has to do with wellness, in my opinion.
Do with wellness, right? And it's just like, even your Instagram, AHA Wellness, is just basically like, aha, this does work. Like, aha,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
aha, yeah.
And it's like, aha, this works. Aha, we grow with every aha moment. You know what I'm saying? So when you're growing, you're healing, you're becoming more well. With every aha, you go through a situation and you learn that lesson. It's okay. You've just healed that whatever in you. So yeah.
Right. So here's another question I want to ask, and I don't want to keep you too long, but here's another question I want to ask is basically doing the Reiki, and like you said, you a nerd, you study, you learn, you're picking up new things, right? Do you see, have you ever heard that people say, where does Reiki come from? Is it European based? Where does yoga come from? Is it European based? Because we see a lot of, white counterparts doing yoga and it's like a big thing, and doing Reiki. Like, what would you tell someone if they said, hey, where does Reiki come from? How did we get our hands on it? Japan. Okay.
Yeah, it is a Japanese form of energy healing. And if you research Reiki, there are different forms of Reiki these days, but I practice the traditional Usui Reiki, which was created Dr. Usui. So yeah, no, it goes back. It's definitely Eastern medicine. It's not from here.
Gotcha.
That yeah, that so I would definitely let them know. I would give them a quick history of Dr. Usui and where to come from. The Reiki ended up here with Dr. Miss Tanaka, who studied under Dr. Usui. She moved from Japan to Hawaii, and then that's how it made its way to the West. But it's originally from Japan.
Got you. So for those who are listening, this is how it started. The culture, things come here and we think it's from here because of Europeans doing it, or whether it's yoga, Europeans doing it, but it had been done centuries ago.
Exactly. Because the Europeans went to Japan or whatever the Asian countries, is usually Japan, and they studied there with the monks or whoever, and they take that and they bring it over there. So you think it's from there because, no. Yeah.
Jumping into, now you're married, after, going through the phases and things of that nature. You say you've been married for about 22 years now?
Yeah, 23 this year.
Now, during the pandemic, there was a lot of us, and everybody was in the house with everybody, right? Just going through the motions, can't go outside, can't do nothing, just in the house with the same person every day, all day, right? How was the household during that time? And what was your mental exercises to keep you guys staying fresh, to keep your marriage, not talking about, your children and things of that nature, but the marriage itself? How did you keep it upbeat? How did you keep everybody on a mental keel that you didn't end up in divorce like half of America did after the pandemic happened? Like, how did you push through that process?
Well, first and foremost, he ain't getting rid of me that easy, because it's forever, bro. Unless one of us passes away,
Right.
That I believe in Black love because as a people, our marriages were that it was it. You just whatever come along, obviously unless there's abuse or whatever, we'll figure out whatever comes along. That's first and foremost. For him, he just surrounded himself with. We made sure we had time apart because since to give each other a break, you stay on that end, I stay on that end. So I'm a big meditator. During that time, I love to meditate, but I was meditating hard. And it wasn't even my husband, because he's a real outgoing guy. He's funny, so he keeps me out of, because like I said, I'm a nerd. I'm always in my head. I'm always thinking. I'm always whatever.
Right.
He takes me out of that. So he's real funny. He's real animated. So we work well together. I'm gonna be real. We were fine. It was the doggone kids that I was driving.
It was the kids driving me crazy.
Driving me crazy. So, although I did, I try and meditate every day. There were a couple times that I was meditating 2-3 times a day, and my kids started making fun of me because I would go and hide in my walk-in closet And every time I go, I'm going to my room. They're like, "Are you going to meditate?" Yes, I'm going to meditate.
Yes. Just like what grandma used to say,
I need to meditate.
I need to meditate. Just like grandma used to say, I'm going in my secret closet. Like, I didn't necessarily go into a closet, grandma, but you go into a secret closet, you're going to hide away to get away.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, wow. You know what? What are, having this beautiful conversation with you about health and wellness and coaching and giving us a whole perspective of us as a person, as a people, and what we should look out for. Do you have like a brick and mortar place that that people can come check you out, or is this do you do what do you call it? Do you go to each and every person's house or home, or do you travel like that? How are you helping? How are you helping us with our mental health with that regards?
I do do virtual. So if when it comes to coaching, the majority of my coaching sessions are via Zoom. I can do in person, meet for coffee or something like that if someone wanted to, but the majority are done via Zoom. And then as far as Reiki, my brick and mortar is in Manassas. It's 10690 Crestwood Drive in Manassas. And I also provide for those that either don't live in the area, I can do Reiki. So where we pick a time, schedule a time, and we send Reiki. Because, when it comes to time and space and energy healing, there is no time and space. So, and it's funny, I tested it with my husband because of his back surgery. And he was having pain, and he was laying next to me, and he couldn't turn a certain way. So I have a special teddy bear that is blessed and sacred that I use for distance Reiki, which is like if I'm, because, a teddy bear has head, arms, legs, whatever, right? So I had my hands on the specific spot that he needed it. And I'm giving him Reiki, and I said, "Do you feel it?" He goes, "It's warm." I was like, so even though I'm not physically touching him, he could feel. And I tell him that's an example of what distance Reiki is like. I don't have to be physically touching you to send you the
Yeah, that's dope. I mean, my ex-wife at the time, she was into Reiki, and I understand the process of Reiki, and I do have friends who are into Reiki too, and I do have friends that are holistic healers as well. But it's always good to hear someone else's experience when it comes to health and wellness, because health and wellness go together. Coaching in that regards go together, because you gotta find somebody to coach you through this process, because this process can be very daunting. It can be very you can be scared in this process. You can be fearful in this process. You can be open, but still scared of what is going to come out of a Reiki session, right? So let me ask you this final question, because all of us have, we go through a lot of things in this life, and then this world sometimes and all the time will kick your
oh
ass if you allow it. It will just kick your
yeah.
ass. And in the process of the world kicking your ass, what are when do you find time for yourself to just turn it off and just be in the moment, whether it's drinking a cup of coffee you love, or just listening to the birds sing, whatever the case is? When does that moment happen that you can kind of get away from everything and turn it off?
Because I am such a giver, I have to be very purposeful with my time to tune everything out. I'm for anybody that's into astrology, I'm a Pisces, and that if you're into astrology, that would say it all. I'm always giving. Sometimes if I'm not careful, I deplete myself. So that's why I'm very big with clients and myself as well. Just like how you schedule doctor's appointments, time with friends or whatever, you need to schedule time with yourself. And I'm the type of person where I have to put it in my calendar, because, if not, whatever my husband needs, whatever my kids need, whatever a family member needs, if it's work related, that's going to come first. just automatically when it comes to me. But for me, it is either late in the evening when everyone's already asleep,
Mm-hmm.
or early before they get up. And or there are times where, because I feel so overwhelmed, because I know myself and I've been giving, I will go in my backyard and I will go and just listen to the trees rustling or whatever. If I really, really need to get away, I'm close to a state park. I'll go there with my 11-year-old and kind of just by the Chesapeake in the sand,
Uh-huh.
put my feet in the sand to ground myself. Um, you can always ground yourself in your front of your backyard by putting your feet in the grass. And I don't know if it's because of my culture, my heritage, I'm more drawn to sand, being from the Caribbean.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not one, my kids are, because they were obviously born and raised here. They'll go out and they'll just go barefoot all around. I don't like walking the grass. I don't know what it is. I don't like walking the grass. So
Right.
if I'm really in need, I'll go to the state park. It's only like 10 minutes from my house, and I'll go and I'll walk in the sand and just listen to the water. Or sometimes I'll go on nature trails. That's when I really need to get away, physically go someplace else, to go into the forest or go to the beach. Or for some reason, if I can't, there have been times where I've closed my bedroom door and I've put a note on my door: do not knock unless you're dying.
Oh.
Meditation. If I have my sign, because I have a pre-made sign, if it's that's there, they know, do not knock unless something is detrimentally wrong with you.
That's what's up. Yeah, all moms probably need to do that anyway too, just to get away. Just have a do not knock on this door until if someone only
If
knock if someone's dying.
what you can't give, what you don't have.
Mm.
And I have, it took me a while, but once I found my spirituality and the energy healing, I really understood that you cannot give what you don't have. And as much as you want to be there emotionally for this one, physically there for that one, the reason why you might get, short fuse, irritated, headaches, whatever might be going on, is because you haven't refilled your cup.
Mm. Makes sense. Makes sense. I hope everyone is either taking notes or listening or will replay this live, because it is a lot of messages are being given, a lot of knowledge is being given, and I really appreciate you taking the time to share who you are, because I can't tell your story for you. You're the only person that can tell your story, and you did a beautiful job, because there's things I didn't know that now I know that, to basically watch out for. So what I would love for you to do is just give whoever is listening right now and who will listen later some encouraging words for Salvation Sunday. Give us something that, what are encouraging words you would love to leave our listeners right now? And when I say our listeners, that's me and you,
Yeah.
our listeners, right? What encouraging words would you give us?
Don't forget to water yourself. Self-care is so important. It touches and influences and affects everything in your life. From your mental health to your physical health, to your relationships, to your job. If you are not what I would consider as centered or balanced or what have you, every aspect of your life is affected. It could be affected in a positive way if you're taking care of you, or it could be affected in a negative way if you're not.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Salvation Sundays, episode 54. I'm talking to Carla, who is Aha Wellness 777 on Instagram. And I want to thank you so much for giving your time and giving your knowledge and giving your information and allowing yourself to feel at home to share this stuff with us, because sometimes without that knowledge, we are definitely lost. Without those directions of where to go and how to get there, and hey, there is a Popeye sitting there, and there is a 7-Eleven on the corner. If you miss the sign, you'll see the big old 7-Eleven in Popeyes. So you can't miss the turn. So thank you for being our GPS, our spiritual and mental physical GPS today and for always. So I definitely appreciate you and all your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
I
Say it again.
had a good time.
And I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did. And if there's anything I could do on my end to share the information that you have, just DM me the information, and or if I see it posted up online, I am going to reshare it and make sure that people are following you and coming to you for your services as well. So I thank you so much.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Have a good day. This is Sunday. It's nice out. So enjoy it.
To go in my backyard with my dogs, have some.
I know that's right. Thank you so much. You have a good Sunday.
You too.
All right. Peace. Mental Salvation Radio, man. I tell y'all what. Big up to everybody who chimed in today. Big up to Push for Love. Push for Love had her second annual Push for Love conference, right? And I heard it was dope. She told me it was dope. I texted her. I was like, I hope the joint you had yesterday was dope. She's like, it was awesome. And I was like, that's what's up. So appreciate you, Push for Love. Big up to Paranoia Starseed Podcast, who is Roxy, who is basically returning back to her airwaves. And she's taking off and she's coming back in May. So check out Paranoia Starseed Podcast on the YouTubes in May. Big up to Karma. I believe that's how you pronounce your name. Greetings to you. Thank you so much. Big up to the Golden Lotus for tuning in as well. Big up to Garganus. Big up to Jay Robinson. Big up to Gigi Wong. Hopefully Gigi Wong is doing well. I know you're doing well, Gigi Wong, and I wish you a speedy recovery. So thank y'all for tuning in to another installment of Salvation Sundays. I am Enoch 7th Prophet, and like I always say here on Mental Salvation Radio, the sun will always still shines no matter how cloudy, gloomy, or rainy it appears to be. The sun will always still shines. Until next time. We're going out with Alice Coltrane. Mental Salvation Radio. Peace.